Hey guys, what's going on?
Hey,
you know there's a big air show going on in Newburgh right now. There's jets flying all over the place.
literally everywhere.
It's pretty neat, man.
It feels like we live in like a war zone. I tell you right now, like I'll be sitting in my room and all of a sudden I will literally hear fly over the head. You're like, oh my god,
it's amazing, man.
That's it.
So cool
it's over.
It. Yeah.
I go running outside. Go.
Every time I see them, I think there's like maybe some sort of a terrorist attack or something going on, and the jets are flying and trying to,
it's crazy,
intercept it or something.
I just wonder how cool it is to be up in it. Like, there's so few people who do stuff like that. They're literally flying a jet.
That would be the coolest.
Crazy high speeds. Yeah. They're flying a jet, and then of course don't forget loop-de-loops and doing barrel rolls and doing crazy moves, and they're flying like
we went to wing.
It's crazy
They're only
stuff.
Separated by a small amount.
It's pretty amazing. That's like one of my childhood dreams, to either be a fighter pilot or an astronaut.
Yeah,
you can still happen. Cool.
That is
kind
pretty
of a space cadet, so you're on your way.
Yeah,
I am sort of already. So anyway, welcome to the show, guys. This is our 9th episode. Today is August 24th, 2019.
2019. Hey,
I got it right.
You got it right.
I got it right.
All right.
Off to a good start.
I think that's the first time I got the actual date of the podcast correct.
Well, that might be the first time you've ever gotten the date right.
I should just do it where I just do it wrong every time, just for like conversation for the show and content. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you think we're gonna cut out the part where we do this is episode 9? Are we gonna be like this is episode 100?
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna be doing that. I'm gonna at least count them down.
This is episode 10,000. I don't know how we're still alive. Some weird thing. I think this basement has a lot of asbestos that is extending our lifetime
or destroying brain cells.
Yeah,
and taking years off of our lives.
Well, because we're becoming zombies, and then we're just undead, and then we're just forever undead, and that's what it is.
Well, yeah, that might be my problem.
I don't really get that whole term undead. I don't really get it because you are dead.
You're dead.
I don't really understand.
Well, they're undead because the dead don't move, but they're still moving around. So maybe that's
they're like
why they're
animated dead.
Yeah, reanimated. Right? That's like the technical term is reanimated.
No,
you're
it's
a reanimated corpse.
You die and then you come half back to life, so undead.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
By the way, we hear that if you're like
alive,
God is that God? No, that's Brian.
That's Brian. So let me introduce us. We got my son here, Joe. Joe, what's new? What's going on in your life? Anything new recently? Since the last episode.
Since the last episode, not too much. I'm a proud father of 17 small Bangladeshi children.
I was wondering where you were.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we're gonna pick out names later. Or?
Yeah, I did.
You haven't done the names, right?
No.
Or we'll have to think. Maybe we'll make an episode on that. We got Rob on my right over here. Rob, what's new, man?
Hello, everybody. Not much, Joe. Gonna hang out with you guys, enjoy the time with all of you, and then later on, I'm gonna celebrate my son's 7th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Georgie.
He's not Bangladesh, but he's still human.
But he's that's good enough.
Drink one for me, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
A few.
All right. Drink a few for me. And of course, we got our technician in the back, Brian.
What's up?
It's Brian.
All right. Brian's got his mic.
I am on mic today.
He is my backup brain.
Yeah.
Thank God.
He's my backup brain.
And by backup brain, you mean he's your brain.
He's my
primary.
He's my primary brain.
Yeah.
I'm the backup brain.
Funny enough, that was my nickname.
I'm my backup brain.
That's my nickname at camp. The kids call me Brain.
Brain.
I was a counselor.
Brain.
Yeah.
Brain. All right. Cool, man. No, that's perfect.
That was like they call you backup brain.
They call you backup.
No, just Brain.
That's
backup
That's
brain.
uncanny.
It is.
So now, if you happen to notice, every time we have an episode, something changes about our set. So we're going to have to make that something like it's like a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
So we'll when we run out of things to build the set with, we'll just start painting Rob different colors. We'll just change little things about Rob, change his hat, change his clothes, dress him as a clown, whatever.
Changed.
Yeah,
I've kind of been changing my clothes all on my own for a while now.
Well, that's surprising actually.
Yeah.
But so we have the new table here, and we want to upgrade the set instead of having that table we have with the tablecloth on. We figured we'd upgrade to a nicer table, so we got a nicer table. And I picked it up the other day. A guy picked it up from. His name is.
You picked up a guy the other day?
Well, you picked up a guy and he said, "Hey, by the way, do you need a table?"
That's kind of another story, really.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
Maybe
anyway,
save that for later.
Yeah, we'll save that for later. So his name's Kurt, and he's in the process of building a coffee shop over in New Windsor, 145
awesome.
Windsor Highway in New Windsor, and he was selling some tables, beautiful table. He has many more of these tables. This table is only $50. He has smaller ones, smaller versions of it.
There you go.
And so if you're looking for a table, they're really awesome. They're
I will say this is a really nice table. It actually is a really nice table. I was super. You come home and he's like, "Hey, I bought a table for the podcast." I was like, "Okay, that's cool." So I'm picturing it's gonna be like one of those like little fold-up tables. Me and Rob and Dad are gonna be huddled around with just our elbows on a table.
I was thinking about that, putting up like a little coffee table or something like that. Bring a coffee table from upstairs and doing that.
That would be kind of funny if we were just all huddled, all four of us huddled around this tiny little table.
It'd be like The View.
Right.
We'll just do The View for men.
Sharing one laptop.
Yeah.
Just one laptop, and we'll be sitting around laptops saying, "Oh wait, no, switch the page. Wait, the other page.
No, go back
Get to
one.
that tab." You know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I told him I would do a shout out for him because of the nice table and all that stuff, and who knows, maybe we'll get some free coffee later on in the future. But
Hell yeah,
anyway,
man.
if he wanted everyone to know that if you're interested, if you want to get all exclusive invites to his event info for his coffee shop, he doesn't have a definite date on when he's opening right now, but we'll update that when the time comes. But if you'd like, you can text HOT to 33222, and you will get information on exclusive invites and event info for the coffee shop.
I hope you verified that.
No, I did. I spoke to Kurt, and so
Go type in hot. I don't know what's coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So just we'll post that information, and you can follow up on that. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it. But anyway, yeah, do that, and that's cool. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about a bunch of things. There's a bunch of topics to talk about, so I don't even know where to begin with half of them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of had a lot of things in mind this week. I know, like, I don't know, you kind of, like, Rob sort of started off a new trend where we're kind of not necessarily, breaking away from our hilarious nature, but, believe it or not, we do have actual thoughts in our head. We have brains that we do think about actual real issues on occasion.
Yeah, so I'm going to start it off with another controversial issue that last week we talked about Jeffrey Epstein. And
the Jeffrey Epstein thing. That's a little bit, I guess you could say controversial. At the very least, it's definitely polarizing.
Yeah,
right?
we don't want to turn our stuff into political debates. It's just information, how we feel about
facts
a particular thing. And everybody has their own opinions and feelings and stuff. So what we wanted to talk about was the mass shooting in Dayton.
Yeah, right. Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas.
Yeah, we want to send our prayers out to the people who are affected by that.
Unfortunately, we had actually I think we had actually filmed an episode that Saturday that it had happened.
It happened, yes.
And I remember Rob had said, listen, like, should we mention the shootings? And we were like, at the time, we were like,
I didn't even know about the shootings.
You didn't even
Rob
know about
mentioned
it
because I was so busy setting. I think I was setting this up.
This was the episode we were setting up the whole thing.
Yeah, and then Rob said, I said, what shooting? And then I found out about it. So yeah, we did know. So, but we touched on it a little. We want to touch on it a little bit today.
Yeah.
We want to talk about maybe gun control. How you guys feel?
So the gun control.
Personal opinions about how you feel about the gun control debate that's going on, and if you think what people are talking about will actually work, or what you think might, what you think about it, how you think it would, what would be a good idea.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Maybe help the issue or something like that, and maybe compare some other things in other countries or whatever.
Yeah.
But so I posted something in our notes, but it's the Second Amendment is a very simple thing.
Right.
So we'll just base it off of that. I mean,
sure.
and we'll continue on from there. But the Second Amendment basically says a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right to bear and keep arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment.
That's the Second Amendment.
All right. So it's written how many years ago? 220 some odd years ago, I think, when they wrote the
back in the 1700s.
Yeah. So I mean, it was basically, you have to take it in context to a certain extent.
Sure.
I mean, how do you guys read that? It's I mean, people want to have all kinds of guns. I have guns. I have two guns. I have a military gun from World War
I thought
II.
you were talking about these.
Well, I have those
those
guns,
two
of
guns.
course.
Oh, how to do that?
Those two guns.
But yes, but I have a 22 rifle.
Yeah, a
with
nice little
scope.
22, which is a little small caliber, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Probably take you about 400
400
bullets
shots to take somebody down.
Well, not even a person. I mean, I wasn't going to go that
Squirrel?
dark. I was going to say it would take me 400 shots to take down probably a leaf of a tree.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that leaf is. I give up. My leaf's.
I do that.
That leaf's not
Gotta
letting
be an
go.
old tree.
Yeah. It has to be like a really old tree, dying, half dead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I use it for like my hedges when I just get a lot of rounds of 22 ammo, and I just start trimming on the hedges with it. But it takes like 3 years.
It's starting to get cumbersome.
Like when you go to those bootleg fairs or little county fairs or rye playland type things, and they had that, you had to shoot out that star, and there's always a tiny little bit that you can never get.
Never get it.
Yeah, they got the BB with the Tommy gun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That reminds me of what's going on here.
Exactly.
So,
but then we also have the other gun you mentioned. I don't even know if it even. I know you say it still fires, but I guarantee you, the day we put a bullet in that thing and try to shoot it's going to explode.
It has all.
Don't do that.
It has the firing pin. It has the bolt. It's a World War II Japanese Arasaka Type 99 rifle with bayonet.
Actually, from Japan. It was brought back from your grandfather.
No, it was brought back from my dad.
Your father, rather. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Who fought?
I hope this is all legal.
He didn't fight.
I mean, it was technically you, but you'd like to say your dad because you're like, I'm not that old.
Yeah, no, I don't want to give away my age that much. We have to some extent.
You have a rifle from almost every war, including the Spanish and Indian War.
I had my first hatchet from when the tribe moved south and we were trying to protect ourselves.
Well, some guy showed up and he was like, I'm Christopher Columbus. You want to have a present? And you're like, oh yeah, I'll take it. I'll keep it. I'll give it to my son.
It was just a souvenir, and it was kind of cool. Then he wiped out my entire freaking town, community, all my family, and everybody else. But so we have rifles, and I don't really know how to feel about. I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment. I'm not trying to say that I don't believe in the Second Amendment. People should have the right to bear arms, and protect themselves. And I think that's basically what it's about. And it also has something to do with tyranny. When a government wants to say, hey, you can't have guns anymore, that's a way. Once you don't have guns, that's when in Soviet Russia, when the communists took over, they banned guns. Nobody was allowed to have guns. You literally go to jail for the rest of your life if you had guns. And they didn't want people having guns because they didn't want the possibility of people rising up against the government. And that's what it was for. I mean, when the revolution started, it was trying to break away from a tyrannical country, and part of that Constitution was the Second Amendment, and that was to protect against that ever happening again. People being able to have arms to protect themselves against intruders or whatever, also against tyranny. So, how do you feel about it?
Well, I think it's interesting. You and I have obviously talked about it before. I think you and I have pretty much pretty similar views on it. I think it's interesting. Like you and I have talked about it before, where a lot of these laws were written during a time when it took let's assume it took 2 to 3 minutes to reload one bullet into a gun.
Right.
Nowadays, you can buy high capacity magazines for a semi-automatic rifle that 100 rounds you could fire. 60 rounds in 30 seconds.
Right.
Or, whatever.
And I'm not so much against that
That's a big thing, right?
I mean, because I believe in most gun owners. I believe that people who own guns are responsible people. They're usually trained, they're licensed, they've taken courses on how to proper gun safety and stuff like that. They're not the people that are going out and shooting people. They're not taking their guns and shooting people. They're using them for sport or just collection or something like that. And that's fine. These people are going out and shooting mass shootings are either getting the guns from the people because they're leaving them unlocked, or they're in places where the kids or whatever people can get a hold of those guns.
Right.
That's where I think there's a problem.
Yeah. Well, I know that like according to the Pew Research Center, I know they say that actually the major reason that most gun owners list for why they own guns, about 67% of gun owners list protection, self-protection, and home protection, home defense as the main reason that they own a firearm.
And that runs, parallel to what the Second Amendment is saying, to keep and bear arms, basically to protect yourself. So I have nothing against that. But, there's certain weapons, though. Like I remember a friend of mine, he, as far as ammo for his gun, he posted something on Facebook about a type of round for a rifle that has this splitting head. It goes like 9 different directions. And when it hits a person or an animal, it literally will tear it to pieces.
Right.
Like it will break and it will just sort of explode and just rip the target apart.
Right.
Now, I think that's a little excessive. You don't need that.
I mean,
that's not sport.
Right.
And they said, well, and the answer to that was, it takes the person down. I said, well, a 357 will take a person down, no problem, too.
Oh, yeah, well.
You know what I'm saying? Or a 30-06 rifle or one of the, you don't need these explosive rounds. I don't think those things should be available to the general public. I don't think it's necessary.
Protection does not mean kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yes. That's a good point, Brian.
It's protection. You don't even sometimes have to shoot the gun, right, to protect yourself. If the person sees a gun, they might just run out.
Yeah, if I'm breaking into a house and I see a gun, I'm getting right the hell out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But Brian, you're always breaking into houses, so I mean, come on. I mean, at this point, you've seen your fair share of guns at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There you go.
So, Rob, what do you think? I mean, as far as, how do we stop it all from happening? I mean, everyone talks about, we got to make all these laws to keep people from guns, and I think it only affects people who are buying them legally, not the people who are buying them illegally. I think it's the people who are buying them have legal guns and licenses for those guns and are registered for those guns.
Right.
It's hurting them if you change the laws.
Well, then, of course, one of the big issues is gun shows, because gun shows, right now you can skirt a lot of the regulation and laws about purchasing firearms by going to a gun show, right? I mean, Rob, you and I were talking about this recently. You were mentioning to me about how the gun shows work, or, at the very least, you can purchase guns that you normally would not be able to purchase, I guess, under, say, at like a standard gun store, Right. And then not to mention state to state, obviously every state is different. You could always go down. Like people always talk about, I know one of the big things is I watched a lot of Joe Rogan, and he had a guy on recently, and he was talking about how, in Chicago, where they have, obviously the violence there is getting out of control with the amount of gang-related deaths and, gun violence there is insane. Handguns are banned in the city.
Right.
You cannot
in New York City, but unless you're a cop.
No, in Chicago.
Chicago, okay.
But people just drive right over the border to Indiana, which is right there where the gun regulations are incredibly lax, and they just come back with their guns, and they just, the violence is getting out of control in like areas like the south side of Chicago, because people are having unlimited access to firearms in just 1 hour over the border.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting. Before you bring up your thing, Rob, it's an interesting thing because down in Texas, there's very, very lax laws in Texas and all that, and there's all kinds of just like they're very, very strong on the Second Amendment in Texas. But here's the thing: they're on the border of Mexico.
Right.
Mexico.
We watched this whole
and Mexico completely bans guns. If you get caught with a gun in Mexico and you're a citizen of Mexico, you'll go to jail.
Yeah.
You'll go to jail for a long time.
They don't fuck around.
But the cartels and a lot of the people who want guns, they come to Texas and they buy the guns, and they buy them really expensive too. They'll buy them for like 5 times the normal price.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And they'll bring them back over the border, and that's where the cartels in Mexico get their guns from.
Yeah, that's it. So, and that's even, and that there was a guy again. Joe Rogan again had a guy on who actually was a narco journalist, and he talked all about that. How like the vast majority of guns that the cartels use are purchased in Texas. Yeah. Like the vast majority.
Yeah.
Like 70-something%.
Because you can't get them in Mexico. You literally can't
pull up
get
an
a gun
exact
in
number
Mexico.
just to give you an idea. But yeah.
So what do you think, Rob? Do you think it's mental health? Do you think their gun regulations will help this kind of thing? I mean, what's your feeling?
I would say I think there's a few things to kind of unpack here. One you hit on earlier, and that was the idea. Brian said it, 1700, so it was 1791. I'm a genius. Google
you got it.
Yeah,
1791, the Second
awesome.
Amendment is put in, ratified.
Okay.
And the idea is, Brian, maybe you could check it out real quick. What kind of weapons do you think were available in 1791?
Yeah, try to
you
pull
kind
it
of,
up.
Joe and Joe,
I know
you alluded to it before.
There were rifled weapons in
No, I'm not. Of course. Rifles have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
This one I can kind of just get off the top of my head. So they had muskets, obviously, single load muskets. But the thing with the muskets back then is that it wasn't in the Civil War. They introduced I forget exactly what it was called, but there was rifling in the barrel that made it just ridiculously accurate to shoot.
Right.
Yeah,
That's why the death toll in the Civil War was a little bit higher.
Yeah.
Back in the Revolution, the accuracy was absolute garbage. So
Well, that was because of the muskets, but there were riflemen, and there were actually snipers and sharpshooters in the Revolutionary
But that was
War.
like a different kind of musket.
Yeah,
But it was a rifled musket. It still had musket balls. They didn't have bullets.
it was balls.
But they had rifling in it, and those guys
But
would
not as
shoot
good.
trees and shoot.
Yeah.
No, not as good as
Joe,
later
you used
on,
to
of
have
course,
musket
but-
balls, and
I
unfortunately
still
those
do.
are gone now.
He still has
have musket balls.
musket
My
balls.
wife
Even
holds
smaller than they
my
used to
wife
be.
holds my musket balls.
in a little
so-
sack.
So getting back to it though, so my point isn't that we have to be exact about what specific weapon there is, but there's something called intent, right? When these amendments were made, there was an intent there because we lived in a different world. We lived with different weapons, with different. Although I mean, some of the same issues still are prevalent today, but obviously the intent, if you even read it, says the amendments say a well-regulated militia. Well-regulated. Does this seem well-regulated?
Right.
And
No.
militia. Are we a militia?
We're not a militia.
No.
Militias
So-
are different nowadays anyways. Like back then, a militia is not a militia now.
Right,
Yeah.
definitely
Definitely
not the
not.
same thing because
Right.
those were state run just guys like you and me and say, oh, let's join the militia, and we get a gun, and then there would be some sort of conflict, and we'd go run to our closet or our shack out back, grab our gun, and meet everybody in the town square, and then go off and fight.
Or you just run to your closet and just hide in your closet.
Or
like
that's
how
what I would probably
Just sit in
do.
a fetal position and cry. Yeah.
exactly.
Definitely. So the other piece of that, I think that's important, going back to the intent of it, like you guys were talking about, the intent was at a time where the government would boot you from your house for whatever reason because
30
it
seconds.
served their purpose.
Okay.
Right.
And that isn't the case today. Even if you wanted to defend yourself from military, you'd have no chance. It
Right.
doesn't matter what weapons you
Yeah.
have. I was in the military, and I could tell you even the least equipped plane is way more than anybody's
Anything you
home
can get, and-
equipment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't even make sense anymore.
Right.
And I think one of the most brilliant things about the amendments is the literal interpretation. It can be amended so that it fits the time frame that it's in, right?
It doesn't look like it has been too much.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of throw this out like freedom of speech. You still have to be reasonable. You can't go in a crowded place and say fire, right?
Right.
You have to have some kind of idea, reason a reasonable person would think. But we're not reasonable people these days.
Right.
You know, so I think that is a huge problem.
Amendments get changed. Like prohibition, that was an amendment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it went and then it disappeared.
Yeah,
again,
then it
you
was-
know? So.
Right.
Yeah, and that's actually a very good point, because it's like I said in the beginning, I don't have a specific stance on gun control. I understand both sides. You know, you guys both know I'm a conservative at heart, but when it comes to the gun control thing, I think something needs to be done. I don't know about. Obviously, I don't want to take away the Second Amendment rules, but I can understand people having weapons that can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah.
You know,
So
and
you're okay with that, though? I don't
I'm
understand
not-
high
I
caliber,
understand-
high rate of fire. I just don't understand.
I don't
don't
know
understand
why
high
people
rate of
would
fire.
need those guns.
Like, what is
and-
the purpose, right?
Well, you know what I don't understand? I think the biggest thing, I was talking to my brother about this recently, the biggest thing I don't understand is high capacity magazines, especially for semi-automatic weapons. I don't understand why you need a 100-round clip for an AR-15.
Right.
You know, people say, oh, well, it's for hunting or it's for self-protection, and the issue that I have with that is just at the very least, 100 rounds is the number. I mean, I feel like if we're going to boil it down to the bottom line about why the AR-15 is so useful, unfortunately, in mass shootings, is that it has the capacity, the ability to be able to hold a 100-round magazine.
Yeah, right.
These weapons
causes
to
a lot
me
of
are
damage.
to deter wars or deter takeovers of a
You're not
large
gonna-
magnitude, not for people on people.
Yeah, we've gone to the gun range with the 22,
Yes.
and they only allow you 5 rounds.
Three
Rounds
three
in your
rounds.
gun at any given time.
Yeah, 3.
So the capacity of my
literally.
22 is 10 rounds, but I think it was 5.
It might be different. No, it was 3, but I think because we
can only
didn't
load-
have a handgun. Handguns might be different. Might be a little allowed.
Maybe
I don't
the
know. I
handguns
don't
are
know.
3, but I'm pretty sure the rifle was
I don't-
5. At
honestly,
least
I
here
can't-
in
I
New
don't-
York, you're only allowed to have 5 rounds in your gun, and then you have to reload after the 5 rounds. You can't load it with multiple rounds. So you're not going to use a gun that has a 100-round clip at a gun range. So it's not a sporting gun. It may be a collecting gun, but I mean, when are you ever going
Do
to
you
use
need
it?
to collect it that badly?
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
worth the risks that come along with it? I mean, I don't know.
I need a
personally think
200-round
so.
mag.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Just
gotta
need
have
it.
it.
That's
I'm
like
not
the gold tier of collectors items. Yeah.
Right,
exactly.
yeah. So I mean, maybe it's a collection thing. I don't.
The one thing I will say that was pretty cool, though, there was a guy there who brought his collector's M1 Garand from
that
like World
was
War
really
II
cool.
style. That I get. It was a mint condition, and that thing, it had the actual click, click, cling. You know,
Yeah,
like
no,
you know,
and
that
when you hit it, at the end, go,
Yeah.
"Ting," yeah, and it was a 5-round clip. So
that
it's
was
really
pretty cool.
I shot
gotta
it.
say that I wouldn't mind
That
having.
thing has a lot of firepower to it. Man. I'll tell you
I
what.
can tell you 2 things quickly, though. Going back to earlier, when I was in the military, I can tell you personally, most people, even with some training, cannot shoot.
Yeah.
They are
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Especially when it's a real scenario. It's nothing like standing at a gun range. Absolutely 0% like that.
Really?
Most people are not good. Even in the simulations I went, some of the times it was embarrassing how bad.
Really, Rob?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
pretty
one thing.
That's
2,
kind of scary to hear that your soldiers are. I
Right.
mean, I get it. You know,
I mean,
you were
also
a
depends,
civilian,
right?
Yeah.
It also depends on what you do. I was in the
Okay.
Navy, so it's not as if
Right.
well, I'm not digging trenches. Not that some of them don't.
Yeah, right,
That wasn't my role.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, you would take a gun to the range, shoot expert, and then they put you in a simulation where things move, and you would shoot embarrassing.
Really?
Yeah. So that was
different
pretty
shooting moving targets, right?
Your adrenaline goes. I mean, not not everybody trains and knows how to breathe properly and all. You know, it has to become second nature.
Right.
And the other thing is, even in that, one of the biggest reasons they changed from the handguns they used to use that were more powerful, like the 45, to go to the Beretta, the 9mm, because it had a bigger magazine and nobody could hit crap.
Right.
So that's why. That's literally one of the biggest reasons they changed what you wore to watch. What you were armed with.
That's crazy.
And in the short time I was in the military, I think there were at least 3 or 4 accidents, and some of them involved gunners' mates whose whole job is to deal with armor and guns
and all that. Yeah.
I remember one shot a friend, another guy shot himself at a party. I mean, these things are just so dumb.
That's unfortunate. Stupid. That's kind of I do have one of the things I did to sort of prepare for this, because I kind of feel like you. And when it comes to a stance on it, I don't necessarily have a stance.
Before we go there,
but I have a lot of facts and figures.
I'm going to go around the table.
Well, let me just real quick. I want to just touch this one statistic, because Rob mentioned accidents. Accidents is actually a fairly common thing, but I think that it happens less than people probably think, because you hear about it a lot, and that's one of the big things people say about not having a gun in your house. But it's in terms of gun-related deaths on average per year, basically about less than 2% of all gun-related deaths are attributed to accidents. So, for example, in 2014, there was 453 deaths, gun-related deaths that were attributed to some kind of accident, which is still a lot.
People
Can you
went to the
imagine?
hospital and didn't die.
Sure, yeah, like injuries and things like that. Yeah, exactly, right. But it's just like accidents. Yeah.
And the other thing, so a lot of people will take that, right? So you're safety, and they'll put the rounds in one safe and the gun somewhere else. And I get that idea. What do you got? 5 hours to help protect? Someone's breaking in your house. Oh my God! What's the combo?
Right? Yeah. Wait a minute. I have an underground safe. I have to dig it up first.
That's my point.
You live in the basement, the body in the fridge, and
exactly.
Well, you know what?
Right, exactly. It has to be readily available. I mean, use your head.
Yeah.
Remember Grandpa, God rest his soul, but he had 2 pistols and a rifle.
Yeah.
He had 38 long, 38 short.
Well, he was a former police officer at NYPD.
He literally kept those guns fully loaded in his nightstand next to his bed.
I mean, if everybody knows where it is and he understands, and everyone is probably safer that way.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to act like I'm an expert on gun statistics, but I would assume that maybe if you grew up in a household where you have a parent who, like, for example, was a cop or a former military, a veteran, and they actually have a lot of experience. They didn't just buy a gun because they want to own a gun, which is fine. But like I know, like my grandfather, my mom always talks about how Grandpa taught them to have respect for guns.
Right.
I'm telling you where it is so that you know where it is. It's loaded. Right. I mean, this was his former service weapon. They let him keep it when you retire, and he always had it loaded because he said you need to have your gun loaded, or at very least, like you said, Rob, readily available where it needs to be. But you need to be able to teach your children. That's another big thing is teaching. I think a lot of parents don't probably put the time in to really teach their kids about guns. That's why some of these accidents probably happen.
Right.
And just in general, people don't learn in general. Even adults probably don't take the time to really respect their, the guns that they're using.
Yeah.
I saw this one hilarious video, and it was funny because nothing bad happened. But it was a video of a gun range, right? And how it was like a surveillance camera, but someone put it on YouTube. The guy's in the gun, the stall, and he's there with his friend, and his friend, you could tell he'd never had a gun before. His friend was the one who had the gun. He has a handgun, and he hands it to his friend, and his friend has his camera out, and he's like taking pictures with the selfie, holding it like this, and then he takes the gun, and he puts the gun faking to his friend's temple, and is like pretending to shoot him, and the gun range operator, loaded gun, the gun range operator literally runs over and puts the guy in a bear hug and grabs him, and then takes his hand and puts his hand on the table, takes the gun out of his hand. He's like,
wow.
And starts yelling at him.
You're not allowed.
There was no audio, but you can imagine he was like, "What the fuck are you doing? You don't fucker."
No, one of the main rules when you go to those places is they tell you the
can't turn around.
Barrel of the gun has to remain downrange.
Yeah.
You can't turn that gun.
I still remember all those things.
Yeah.
As soon as you pull it anywhere,
they'll say something. There's a guy's in the booth watching you.
In the military, you fail your shoot.
Oh, really?
Take it from you when you're done.
Wow,
you can't stand watch, which means you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Because you can't be on watch without a weapon, or they give you a watch that doesn't count for you. Now you're out there with no weapon. Everybody knows you're a loser.
Wow.
You gotta be out to lunch though to put a loaded gun to your friend's head
for a selfie. For a selfie, has the camera here. Trying to take a selfie with it.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like that's somebody who doesn't know anything about guns, and they have a loaded handgun in their hand. And I'm sure there's thousands of people that are just like that guy. I don't know. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So I had some thoughts of my own about what I think could be done, and I'd like to get some feedback from the people out there because I'd like to see how people feel about this issue. And so leave some comments on the video on YouTube or in Facebook on our Facebook page or Twitter or wherever you want to leave the comments. But we're all very interested in hearing from you guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So my thing is, I think the biggest problem is not the gun law necessarily. I think it's people are getting these guns are getting them from their family. They're in their houses. The people are
Access.
They're getting access to the guns in the house. That's number one. Number two. All right. My main thing, and I think I spoke to you guys about this, and it would be an expensive option to guns. But if this was implemented to all the guns, you could own whatever you want. You can own a tank if you want. But
he said this before. This is a good one.
yeah, and my thing is when if there's going to be a law, they should make the gun manufacturers make guns from now on, especially guns that can hold multiple rounds or high-powered guns. They should put a finger print identification in the gun so that the only person who can use that gun is the person who owns the gun is registered for that gun. So when they want to shoot or bring it to a range, they hit it. The gun's registered. The gun knows it's them. They can shoot the gun. But if anybody else picks that gun up, it won't work. The gun will not work. I know that's an expensive option, but if they started doing
That's some
those
James
kinds of
Bond
things,
shit, man. That's what I said.
They could do it, though.
There are some of those things, actually.
Yeah.
I do know one person who has a number of guns in his house. He lives right in this area, former military, and he has several handguns, and they all have print.
Oh, but like a palm
See,
print
now
on a
not
finger, like a
discharged
finger.
without it.
so that it can
Really?
be done.
Okay.
So that it can be done. Now,
And
But
is
I have no idea what the cost. I would imagine
Is it like
I'm sure it would be
on the trigger,
significantly.
Rob?
I didn't
or
really.
is it-
I didn't look at it that much, but I remember he has 3 or 4 kids. So when he was bringing me in and showing me, I was like, wow, just let's say his name Dave. I said, wow, Dave, what are your concerns with? And he said, yeah, I figured you would ask. And I said, you keep them loaded, and absolutely. And they are in a locker, but the lock's flimsy. Anybody can break that thing.
Yeah, sure.
But then he shows it to me. He's like, no, you can't discharge this weapon without having my print on it. So I was like, wow.
Wow, that's really.
But I don't know
interesting.
exactly how it was
Huh.
implemented.
Yeah.
I didn't really
I would like to
That's
know
a
that.
very
'cause when
fascinating-
my dad first told me, I was like, yeah, okay, that'd be cool.
That
Like,
would be a
when-
good idea, and I know it would be expensive.
We'll
But
have
most of
that-
these guys who buy these guns spend hundreds, thousands of dollars on these guns. They're not cheap in the first place. So if they want to add another 100 or 200 for the technology, the fingerprint identification for the guns, I think it would make things safer. So that if someone did get a hold of your gun, they're not going to be able to use it as in their mass shooting that they want to do.
At least legally, it'll make it safer.
And the other thing to go along with that, I know people don't want to bring their old guns that don't have that technology and have them upgraded to that because that would be significantly expensive. But what they should do is they should make the people responsible. So if I had a gun and you grabbed my gun and went out and shot a bunch of people and killed them, and then you got shot or killed, I should be held responsible as if I was the one who did it as the gun owner and not.
That's pretty controversial.
It is pretty controversial, but
point. I don't know about
I can
that.
guarantee you it will make sure that those people who own those guns put them in a place that nobody can get to them except themselves.
Well, I mean, that's.
that
but
might
at that
help.
point, you're going. I mean, that's the opposite of the Second Amendment, though, because now you're talking about because you owned a gun and someone took it from you and someone else did something, we're going to make you responsible for that murder. We're going to give you the death penalty, possibly. Like if you do that in Texas, for example, let's say in Texas, someone does that. If they are treating you the same way as that mass shooter, you're getting put to death because you just bought a gun. I don't think you should get put to death because you bought a gun.
I think it is fair to say that there is some context to every single crime, though. Like, so for example, if someone you don't know breaks into your house and steals your gun, maybe you hit it and he still busted through a closet or a wall to find it.
Yeah.
Investigation can figure that out.
Sure.
I feel like, and
Okay,
there's
fair
like
enough.
reasonable doubt.
It's something to think about, and
you
maybe
took
somehow
reasonable
at least taking
precautions to
some
hide it.
sort of responsibility for.
I think you could do
allowing
a
that gun.
responsibility, like a fine maybe or something like that.
Like
if you're
you
not,
fine.
Not
or maybe
every
even
crime is
some-
black and white.
Right,
For
yeah.
sure.
yeah.
I will say these are, like you said earlier, these are polarizing issues. People, feel ardently one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these are big problems. And to paint with broad strokes here, I think one, it has to be federally regulated. You got to stop with the states. It's
You mean
not.
national?
It's gotta be-
Nationalize
Maybe
it?
even nationalize it. That's a good point, Brian. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
You said an amendment.
it's so fragmented. I mean, you guys were saying, they just go to Texas and buy these. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to be on one page.
Yeah, exactly. They shouldn't be able to come to the U.S. the cartels and buy this.
Right. No, that should not be. able to
Who's
happen.
selling it to them? What do you
Yeah.
think? They have no idea when they see these
Yeah.
people? They want
Yeah.
money.
Of course
You know
not.
what I mean?
A guy shows up covered in face tattoos that says like MS-13. You're like, oh, what are you? Oh, bro, I bet you work in accounting. You must be an accountant. You work over at Ernst & Young over there above the street.
I
Yeah.
just pictured that. Hey, that's it. Nah.
That's the business. MS-13 accounting.
The MS-13 accounting firm. Yeah, that's where I
They
intern
hit
right
those
now.
numbers
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It's a good experience. But you know, it's funny, as polarizing as an issue as it is, it really isn't even as polarizing as people might think in terms of like doing something about it. Like I know, like you know, they always throw out that statistic that, you know, almost 60% of adults believe. I mean, 60% of U.S. Americans do believe that gun laws should be more strict.
Right.
I mean, that's more than half of this country that believe that
Still a
that
large
something
part
should be
of-
done.
40% is still a
40%
huge
is still
part.
done.
I'm not.
But I'm just saying it's multi-dimensional. There's no one answer to this.
I don't
That'd be
think there's
silly.
anything wrong with
Yeah.
the public debate. I know the politicians
Absolutely
make it
right.
a big freaking political issue,
they
but it shouldn't be a
politicize
political. They politicize the issue,
Right.
but there should be some sort of a solution to it that can be, you know, fair to both sides.
Without
you
a doubt.
know? But you know, it doesn't make any sense. So just to put it into perspective, every time there's a mass shooting in this country, everybody goes nuts, and there's a big fervor about it. Everyone talks about it, and it
Yeah,
starts the whole political
rightfully
debate
so.
again.
Yeah,
So just to
absolutely.
put it into
Scary.
perspective, from an article from the New York Post by John Lott and Michael Weisner from August 30th, 2018, of the 86 countries where they have identified mass public shootings, the U.S. ranks 56 per capita in its rate of attacks and 61st in mass public shooting murder rate. Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Russia all have at least 45% higher rate of murder from mass public shootings than the United States.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have a lot more people in this country, but if you brought it down to this, you know, same population amounts, we would be way down in the list as far as actual
It's
mass
still
shootings.
scary, though.
It is scary. It's a scary thing, and it doesn't mean that we don't do anything about it.
Of course.
We still need to do something about it
I-
because it's really tragic what happens.
Yeah.
You know? What do you?
I have an interesting article I found here, and
There
I
you go,
want to
Ryan.
let's see if we can
Our fact checker.
So, yeah. So this is on Democratic and Chronicle. It is New York's red flag law. I have not heard about this before.
No, I've never heard of
But
it.
so it says
I think I have heard of
take
this.
effect on Saturday. Is the law allows law enforcement officials, family members, or school officials to seek a court petition that would allow the seizure of firearms from people that courts find to be a threat to themselves or others. So I mean, I'm assuming this means you can you're literally not going into somebody's house to. I mean, I'm assuming actually maybe
it
going into
might-
somebody's
it might.
house
I
to.
think I heard something about that. I don't think it's.
Yes.
I don't think it's a law yet, but I think they're talking about it.
It is.
It says it's gonna pass next Saturday.
You know, it's funny. I remembered hearing something about it recently, and it's not necessarily in New York, but right after the Dayton and the El Paso mass shootings, I saw a news article that said that a Texas teen was arrested after his grandmother thwarted his plan to carry out a mass shooting at a local hotel. So it says William Patrick Williams
Yeah, I remember when it happened,
was charged Friday with making false statements, and apparently the grandmother apparently I guess I'm not sure of the exact. This might not even be the article I was reading. Actually, of course, typical. Okay. So but basically, I'm not sure if this was the same thing. Now that I'm reading it, the point was that I think that the idea was that she had reported him to the authorities.
I heard that in the news.
Or was it that, let's see, so she said no, she briefly hospitalized before he was arrested Thursday for misrepresenting his address on forms. Says that this tragedy was averted. I want to praise the defendant's grandmother who saved lives by interrupting this plot, as well as the police officers who investigated his unlawful acquisition of a deadly weapon. So, yeah, and this was 2 days before the Walmart shooting in El Paso. 2 days before that, this woman. And but the big thing was that he had an AK-47. He purchased an AK-47.
In the
regular
US.
An actual full auto AK-47
Wow.
he had.
I didn't know you
And
could even get
the
that.
officer said that she saved hundreds of lives.
Wow.
Hundreds of
Amazing.
lives.
Well, at least
So-
she did something about it.
So what I wanted to go to, since we have a nurse in our midst here, in our team, one of the biggest questions is that people talk about is mental health, and a lot of gun advocates say, no, it's not the gun, it's the person, it's a mental health issue. So take it, Rob.
Okay.
There you go, Rob. So take it. All right, Rob.
It's all
So
on you.
Let me take it.
We have a nurse
I'm
and
no,
all-
yeah, I'm no expert. I'm not a
Right.
mental
I'm
health
just
nurse.
curious about
But,
what you think.
no, but either way,
But
yeah.
I think definitely, well, one, I think it does shine a light on mental health issues, and I don't think it's necessarily the problem is just that there are people with mental health issues. That's always been the case. The problem is we continue to ignore people who have mental health
Yes.
issues and treat them like with stigmas that are so outdated and antiquated, these ideas that we have, and we don't address it. Like, for instance, somebody comes in, with one problem, and there's underlying issues or whatever, and we don't address them because we just ignore it. Like, well, they didn't say anything, even though you can see like the way they're dressed or anything. So in any case, I guess what I'm saying is we just have to be open-minded and not be afraid to address it. Like, for instance, when people have an issue and something happens, and then afterwards you hear oftentimes we hear the same kind of thing. I thought something was different about that person.
Yeah.
They hadn't come out of the room for
Right.
a long time. They got rid of all the things they used to care about. They don't look well kept anymore. They can't hold a job anymore. Why aren't you addressing any of that?
Right.
Do you not care about one another? I get that it's not easy to just segue into someone's life, but you should ask if something's wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things you learn in just every area of medical is you ask them, are you a threat to yourself or others? Do you have a plan to commit suicide?
Right.
And some people are afraid to say that, and in the proper context, in the right situation, you don't put those ideas in people's head. I think people are afraid that if you say that, then you're putting that
Yes.
thought into they're either already that way or they're not, and at least you'll find an answer.
That's a great.
And I think that's really the most important. Everybody can take. You don't have to be a nurse or a fireman or a cop. Anybody can take part in just caring about each other and just saying, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?"
It's easy
Yeah.
to do.
You know what I mean?
Very easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's really great that you mentioned that point, Rob, about the suicide too, because I mean, like that's such a, I think, rightfully so, mass shootings are horrific tragedies and they need to be discussed, need to be dealt with, But I think also what's it can be sometimes a little bit sort of forgotten about is the amount of suicide deaths from gun related,
Yeah.
from
Again, it comes back
lax
to that
gun
thing
laws
where
or
people
whatever.
leaving their guns around, where people
Yeah.
were suicidal, get a hold of them. So
Yeah. So, but apparently, according to this study, like 2/3 of all gun-related deaths are suicide, and I mean that's a terrible thing. So I think what you said about trying to get rid of that stigma could be one way. Not even having to go through laws, just trying to just create a better environment where we are able to treat and understand mental health could be one way
to implement
trying
with a combination of
to help
different things
that,
to maybe help it. But anyway, like I said, please leave your responses and your questions and your what you think on
opinions.
your opinions.
Yeah.
Very
We'll try to
interesting. And I
respond.
think it's an interesting topic to talk about. I'd like to know what you guys think out there. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back.
See you in a bit.
See you in a little bit.
Bye. We talked about a lot of heavy topics, especially in the beginning, so we didn't want to think anybody that we take light about it. So if you know somebody or you yourselves having a hard time with any kind of mental health issues, or you even suspect that somebody else might be, please don't hesitate to call the National Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Take care of yourselves.
Okay, so to move on, we'll make it a little bit lighter now because we're going on a lot of controversial topics. So
Well, I
let's
feel like
bring it
that's a good way to like just maybe even like go. I mean, everybody can do what they want to do, but like going forward, but
Yeah, we should try to do
we
that.
always because we always like to be a little bit light, no matter what. We
Well,
always got to throw in our comedy and our.
Kooky and crazy.
I think
Also, because I think our brains just get overheated. Our brains are not built to handle.
Well, you know that.
Actual thought.
So, I have so many ideas, and I'm like, well, I farted those 3 ideas. I don't know what to
exactly.
Yeah.
My
I guess
3
that's
brain
where
cells need to cool down a bit.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
if I didn't have my headphones on, you would actually see the steam and smoke coming out of my
Exactly.
ears.
Yeah, we say it's for you guys. It's not. It's for us. It's more for our brains.
Well, we've actually harnessed the steam out of your ears, and we trap it in that headphone, and we power your house on it.
We
That's
do.
how- yeah,
We
that's
do.
how-
That's
yeah.
sort of the lighting.
Steam power.
We are eco-friendly.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I
Yes.
was even thinking, like I even mentioned it to you, that we could probably just like somehow just get natural lighting in here and just take our hats off, and just have bounce the light off of our foreheads and use that for.
I'm Back to my hat, people.
Get some backlighting in there.
Rob's hat is
Backlighting in
back.
All right.
You know.
Well, a lot of people wanted it back on, I guess.
Yeah, that was like, yeah, in the
Big
comments.
movement. There's people with signs out there. Put the hat back.
We want the hat.
So anyway, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about a show that all three of us have watched. I don't know if Brian's watched it or not.
I have not seen it yet, and I actually saw it on Netflix. Well, I didn't see it, but I saw it was on Netflix
Yeah.
yesterday, and I was like, I should watch it.
It's an amazing show. It's called Mindhunter. Season 1 just came out a week ago Thursday, I think it was.
Season 2.
Friday.
Season 2, a week ago Friday. I already watched the entire. You watched the entire season. I think
did.
you also watched the
We're
entire
done,
season.
yeah.
So if you haven't watched
I couldn't stop.
Mindhunter, either season 1 or 2, you might want to skip over this segment because there may be a lot of spoilers here.
Spoiler
so
warning.
Brian's here, so we'll try to keep it down on the spoilers.
It's
Yeah, you're going to
alright.
watch it, right?
It's gonna be hard
I mean,
to do
yeah,
it, but
but-
it's
Do you plan it?
Well, like I said,
Yeah,
the
I'm
one
kinda
nice thing
watching
is
it.
that it's all based on like
It's based
yeah,
on
that's true. And
true
you
stories,
story.
real events that have happened,
Yeah.
and
That, right, that is true. And,
Yeah.
and it's like I feel like you can talk about the show pretty well without really ruining
yeah,
Not at all. No.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was noticing too. Like, remember, you guys were ahead of me, and I kept walking out into the living room, and you guys had it on, and I kept being afraid of spoilers. But then I'm thinking about, I was like, actually, I already knew that. Like, I already knew that it happened. You know, I already knew about
we
Charles
already-
Manson. I knew that Charles Manson
You already
did
looked
this,
at some documentaries and things like that. So I mean,
Yeah,
from
but even just in general, I think like everyone knows Charles Manson for the most
Yeah,
part.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I
Not
think,
personally.
Not. I mean, well, we hung out a few times, and then he started spouting off this crazy shit, and I was like, bro, what's up with Charlie? I'm
Dead.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert on that. He died in 2017, I think.
Oh yeah, he
Yeah.
died recently.
Actually,
Colon
funny
cancer.
enough, my old orientation leader was trying to she went into journalism. She was trying to get the last interview possible with Charles Manson.
Wow,
Wow.
She never got it though.
No way. That's pretty
And
sick.
a lot of people in my college were giving her a lot of crap for wanting to do that because they're saying he's this awful guy. His
Yeah.
voice should not be heard. But I mean, imagine like getting the last interview
Yes.
with Charles Manson.
Yes.
yeah, that would be pretty
Be
insane.
insane. That's
So-
what these guys did that for. They had to profile. I mean, he's the guy you want to
they're
profile.
learning from
Yeah,
him,
God,
right?
only you can
God.
come up with so much
Oh,
stuff off of that guy, and you see it in the show. But since I don't have the actual rundown and I don't remember names too well, I'm going to let you, Joey, give
Yeah.
like just a brief summary about the show is about from season
right.
1 into season 2, and go ahead.
Okay, so Mindhunter. Well, the reason why I love Mindhunter, and I'm just gonna throw this out there because I'm a film buff, and I gotta throw this out there and just bore everybody with the specifics of the all the cast and crew. Mindhunter was a series that was developed by David Fincher, who is my second favorite director.
Oh, wow, okay.
And yeah, he developed the series. I think as a director, he really has a real affinity for like serial killer type stuff. If you think about look at his like filmography, he did Seven, he did Girl with the Dragon
Seven was
Tattoo,
awesome.
Gone Girl.
Gone Girl,
Oh, that was great, too.
Zodiac.
Yeah.
He also did Zodiac and
Oh, wow, okay.
yeah. So
Is
he
that
actually
the
has
one we were talking about earlier?
He did
That's
Zodiac
also-
with Jake Gyllenhaal.
he did Zodiac with Jake Gyllenhaal.
I love
yeah.
that movie.
okay.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Isn't that a Netflix show too, or is that a movie?
Wait, did he do Night
Zodiac was
Stalker
in
with
a
him
movie.
too?
Oh.
No, Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler,
and
yeah,
that's
sorry.
no. Unfortunately, that's another great director though. He's a real up and coming director. That guy. I forget his
That was
name now
scary.
though. Unfortunately,
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, Brian, pull that up for me if you can. But anyway, yeah. So, but Mindhunter was developed
got a
by
guy.
David Fincher and trying to I think he wanted to kind of make a show. He was going to make a movie, and he got a show about it. And basically, Mindhunter follows the story of FBI Special Agent Holden Ford and also FBI Special Agent Bill Tench, and they basically start the FBI's behavioral science unit, and through that behavioral science unit, they are able to essentially begin profiling serial killers, and they want to develop a sort of profiling techniques for police officers to use in their investigations to be able to better understand the differences between a homicide and a serial murderer. So basically, over the course of season 1, they interview multiple serial killers. They interview Ed Kemper.
And that was the
now, of
main
course,
guy.
this is in the show. They're not interviewing obviously the real
Kemper
actors.
is in
Right,
the
right.
second one too.
Yeah, Ed Kemper's also in season 2. Ed Kemper is the co-ed killer. He killed, I believe, 17 college-age women.
Yeah.
For a period. I'm not sure how long.
I can look that up
Shoot
for you.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yep. And then they interviewed a few other people. Some of the other serial killers actually I'd never really heard of before. I think Richard Speck, they interviewed him. I remembered him. He was another. I think think he killed a college-age woman again. But the point is, over the course of the whole show, it's about him trying to they're beginning this process of it, and he's kind of going against the Bureau. You know, this is the early 70s FBI, right after J. Edgar Hoover, and, you know, they're still going based off of, like, I remember there's this one great scene in the movie where, you know, it's like they're talking about how, you know, your FBI was formed when you guys were hunting down John Dillinger and bank robbers, and, you know, and
they're shooting their names in the wall.
You know, Bonnie and Clyde and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. But now it's like, you know, they're developing this, so they're fighting the pushback from the FBI, and they're fighting the bureaucracy and the red tape. And then season 2, they're coming together more, and they're getting way more support. They're getting way more, but now they're just realizing how it's really difficult, and they're interviewing these evil people, and it's taking a toll on each character individually. And the character stories are great. Yeah, really affecting the characters. And then the big main focus of season 2 also is Bill Tench and Holden Ford in real life. This is based on a true story. They really were directly involved in the investigation into the Atlanta child murders. Who was Wayne Williams was responsible for those murders. And and it's about how they basically used all of their techniques that they had developed over the course of season 1 and season 2 to capture Wayne Williams.
Yep.
So that's interesting what you said, because and I guess this gets into the debate. He may not be responsible for a lot of those. And in fact, he was not prosecuted for any of the children.
Never was.
It was 2 adults that he was prosecuted.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, Edward Kemper started his killing streak when he was 15 years old. He killed his own grandparents.
Yeah.
He just wanted to see what it felt like to kill grandma.
He went to
And his
jail.
mom. It says and his mother.
mom.
I know.
Well, he
10
went to
people in total.
Yeah, well,
His
he
mother
went
really abused
after
him.
he killed his grandparents. I believe he went to juvenile detention, right? And then was he released, or was that
he was released after just 6 years?
6 years?
Yes, but
that's
that was
it.
Yeah, he went to like a juvenile detention facility, and then he was released, and then that was when I believe he went and killed his
Then it was
mother.
8
and
women. He
killed 8
desecrated,
women, and then he killed his mother.
desecrated the corpses. He
I believe.
raping, murdering, and desecrating the corpses of 8 women.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
The last of which was his own mother.
Yes, there you go.
Right.
Look at that.
It
Nailed
says that he did kill 10 people, or at least that's how many people they
Oh, so,
know
okay, so
of.
not 17. Okay, so I was wrong.
Also, Dan Gilroy, Nightcrawler.
Dan Gilroy,
Directed and
okay.
wrote.
Directed and wrote. Nice.
Yeah, so I thought, so there's a kind of subplot, and like I don't want to go into ruining it, and I don't mean to take us off course here, but I thought it was interesting because Joey was just kind of alluding to the mental grief and distress that the 2 FBI agents are really under duress, mentally and physically. But Special Agent Tench, he has another issue going on at home. Something very concerning occurs with his son. I'm not going to go all into that.
Yeah.
But my wife and I ended up going in, not like a kind of a debate, but a long conversation about how she felt, and we're trying to like put into context of the time. So it was the 70s, right?
Yeah, it is.
70s
No, it
into
was
the 80s, I
late early 80s. Yeah, I
Okay,
believe
so
yeah.
early 80s.
late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
Because just by looking at the dress, I mean, she has a perm and the house, the way it looks,
Yeah,
it
and
looks
the cars,
definitely 70s.
the cars are definitely 70ish.
Brian, can you just look up when was Wayne Williams arrested? Can you just pull it up for me? I'm not used to having a fact check. I keep
We got a
Googling
guy.
it.
I
I'm
got
like,
you.
we got a guy now.
We got a guy.
What was his name?
Wayne
Williams?
Wayne Williams. Yeah.
Wayne Williams.
But you go ahead.
So what was interesting is she was like, I don't understand why Bill doesn't get his wife's point of
June
view.
21st, 1981.
There you go. Okay, so, all right, so
Okay.
early, yep.
So, and I'm like, what don't you understand? The guy has a job that's like, he's making the job. It's not even a job that's been there, right? They're pioneering this job, and he's under incredible stress, and that's how I'm looking at it.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about, they're coming out of the 50s. That guy is a 50s guy, I would
Yes.
say, for sure. He's
Big
not
time.
20 in that show. He's
No.
well into probably
Right.
mid-40s.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they adopted this kid, and I think he still has that American way about him, he's intelligent, but if you just look at him, he looks like a guy who likes to sit down and watch football on Sunday.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Right. So anyway, try to shorten this up a little bit. She thought and I don't want to ruin the ending, but it does come to a head between the husband and the wife and the son. Something does occur there.
Right.
And they foreshadow it when he calls the house and it keeps ringing. Anyway, she's like, he should have saw that coming. I don't know what he was thinking. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? He's doing his best to be home. They're under tremendous stress at work. He has a stressful situation at home. But then as it goes along, it is hard to really choose a side there. You really see that's to me was really actually pretty interesting, and it carried to make the show interesting even when they weren't discussing the actual serial killers or who they were hunting. I think it really fleshed out the characters.
Yeah,
I really
I
like
agree.
that aspect.
It's a really, really good show. You should definitely check it out if you have Netflix, and even if you don't, get Netflix at least just for that, and then cancel your thing
Yeah.
because it's really worth it. It's a really cool show. It's a very intriguing show.
You get a
Netflix.
free
Fascinating.
30-day trial.
We
Yeah,
just lost
so-
another sponsor.
Oh, well, yeah.
He's like, just sign up.
well, no,
and then get rid of it.
they want
Yeah.
you to sign up for the
No.
free trial, and they're hoping you just don't cancel it. So
Yeah.
I just promoted Netflix, so maybe they will be our sponsor.
Well, maybe we'll get
someday.
Hulu now.
I will
until that
also
goes.
say Netflix has the most amazing headquarters I've ever been to.
Oh,
have you
really? I
seen
never.
it?
I
been-
lived down a block away when I was in college.
No
I lived
kidding.
a block away from Netflix.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
And it's cool. You walk in, there was
That's
like a little smoothie bar. They have like, like they have this like big like LCD screens on the walls when you walk
Really?
in.
Wow.
The lobby is fantastic. I mean, obviously
Wow.
you have to be like, I was dropping off a package for, it was business related stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
I got in for a little bit and it was kind of cool.
You
Holy
wouldn't,
shit,
you
man,
wouldn't,
that's awesome, man.
you wouldn't know by
I got
that.
stories.
Yeah, you do. Holy
We'll
crap,
have
that's
to
like
make that. We'll have to make that a segment.
You know,
Yeah, sure.
we'll interview Brian
We'll
one
learn
week.
from
We'll have
Netflix.
Brian
Yeah.
interview himself. We'll
yeah,
say
we'll just have
Yeah,
to.
the
We're
voice
just
of
gonna
God.
sit here and
Yeah.
stare
The guy
at him.
behind the guy.
the guy behind the guy.
We're just gonna sit and stare at him like I did earlier. I'm just gonna sit there. And
That's the whole thing. Yeah, just dazing
wow.
out with the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but yeah. So and there's a lot of. I feel like nowadays with shows, there's so many good shows nowadays. Like Mindhunter, it sucks because I'm always trying to tell people to watch Mindhunter, and then as soon as I say Mindhunter, they'll be throwing out something else. Like I started watching that. I was talking about a Barry recently. Someone will say,
yeah.
"Oh, you like serial killer stuff? You just watched that show Barry." Because the guy's
Right.
kind of like a serial killer type, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I mean you should
With
watch that."
Bill Hader on HBO.
Yeah,
I
it's an
love Bill
amazing
Hader.
show. It's such a great show, but
He
it's
is
just
so
funny. There's so much crazy stuff
Well,
going on in
Dexter
the
is
world
a
of
serial
that.
killer.
Yeah.
One on.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix. I don't think it was originally on Netflix.
I'm
but-
gonna save.
yeah.
I'm
it
gonna
was-
save our
that was
audience
great.
right now. Watch the first 4 seasons and then act like that was the end of the.
Yes, exactly. I agree completely.
I didn't. I kind of liked everything.
You did?
but-
I
I
love
did.
that.
I
did.
liked season
I don't
5.
know that I liked
I
the
actually
ending
liked season
necessarily,
5.
but
The
at least.
Trinity Killer was the last time I liked that show.
Yeah.
I
So-
think that's season 4.
Yeah,
So
it was
you,
season
you
4.
guys know.
I watched after that, but it was,
Do you guys
Yeah.
know who Rodney Alcala is?
no, who's
No.
Rodney Alcala?
I'm
Is this
from
one of the guys?
his last name is Alcala. Do you know who he is?
No, I do not know who he is. Why? Who
He
is he?
He's called the dating game killer. You
Is
ever
that
hear of him?
is he from a different country? Because I thought
No,
I thought
he's a U.S. guy. I remember
really?
seeing this because I watched some videos on YouTube because I got intrigued by the Mindhunter. I think it was the Mindhunter, and I started
I think that's
watching
been
YouTube
happening a
videos.
lot.
But this guy, Rodney with James Alcala, was a lady killer, literally. The outwardly charming Alcala landed a spot on the dating game in 1978 while in the middle of his murderous reign, later earning the nickname the dating game killer. Alcala was eventually given the death sentence by the state of California for the murder of 5 people. The killer, though, says the number is low. He claims that he raped, tortured, and murdered well over 100 victims.
Well, that's what they said about Ted Bundy as well. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
it's
Ted
hard.
Bundy
They all
said
try to
that.
say that.
A
do you
lot of
think
them,
about
they
that,
say
though?
they'll
Like-
claim a ton of. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. go ahead.
Because I know a lot of them say like, "Oh, I got hundreds
Yes.
of people."
Right,
Like,
right.
how much can you believe them? Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I know with a lot of these people is they love the attention, they love the press,
Right.
they love the media.
Exactly.
They want to be like I got like 500 people in a
Yeah.
week.
Exactly. In 1 week.
You know, a
Exactly.
great example of that, if you want to listen to some crazy stories about serial killers, Henry Lee Lucas is a guy. Watch anything on him. He's like a hillbilly who's got like 3 teeth left in his mouth, and he goes on a murder spree with like a 6'8" gangly cross-dresser.
Really?
Yeah. What's
What
the
the
guy's
hell?
name? Henry Lee Lucas and
Dennis Rodman.
I got you.
No.
That's Rodman. Yeah.
You
Now
literally
we're gonna have to
described
think of
Dennis
a-
Rodman.
we're gonna have to think of a
6'8"
name.
crossdresser.
Oh no! Well, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. But yeah, and they both end up killing together. And there's so much sick stuff on that. I was listening to a 4-part episode of that. With not that they need my plug, but last podcast on the left, they go
Yeah.
through. It's oh my gosh, listen to it. You'll be like. But what's amazing about it,
They get
to Brian's point,
fascinated,
is
yeah.
that he said he killed like 1,000 or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And like afterwards, like he was known as one of the biggest liars. Like he couldn't prove most of them. They
Right.
suspect he may not have even killed any, or they know he killed his mom,
Okay.
but they think it might have been as few as 3.
Really?
And he's claiming hundreds.
crazy.
But the guy that he was with, I cannot remember.
Was
his
it
name.
Otis Toole?
Yes, and it's not
Otis
even
Toole.
Otis. The way they spell it's Otis.
Gotta love having a fan.
Otis
Yeah,
Toole.
Finally.
You got it.
Love that.
Look at his image and tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. This guy is I would be
Which
scared
one?
to death.
Toole or?
Toole, Otis Toole.
Did he play with Michael Jordan?
Oh my gosh.
You can't. That's exactly.
Like Frankenstein.
Just pull
wanna
the guy
put it-
up
we'll
on
put
your
a picture
screen,
of
you
him on
will
Twitter.
Dude, he has like a child bride. I can't even go into it all. It's just insane. They go on a murder spree together. They're drifters. The one guy's a necrophiliac who can only sleep with dead women.
Really?
Crazy,
Yeah.
man. Some of these
That's
people
like
are
Ted
insane.
Bundy.
If you listen, there was one point I was watching YouTube video about all these different guys, and I got to one guy, and I don't want to describe it, but I couldn't watch it anymore because
Yeah.
the images that it instilled in
sick.
my mind, I couldn't
Yeah.
get out of my head.
But I think there's a
And-
definite fascination that a lot
It
of
is a
people
fascination.
have.
Look at
Now-
Brian right now. He's in the Odyssey.
Yeah, now-
hole.
You look at
we
this
just-
guy's eyes and there's nothing there.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's
dead,
just
right?
insane.
Exactly. He's just dead. I
But
totally
now,
agree.
I just want to mention one guy because
Yeah.
this one fascinated me because I never heard of him because you hear about American serial killers. I'm just going to mention one.
Is this the guy from a different country
Yeah,
you
he's
want to talk
from-
about? They don't
his-
even know if this is real.
Well, no,
My dad
his,
just bringing
I'm,
it up.
all right, we'll look it up. You guys want
They
to
call
check
it
it out? It's fine.
Genghis Kane.
Genghis Kane. Yeah. He killed a lot
You
of
heard
people.
that song they made of him? Gone.
I don't know that if they consider him Genghis Kane, but anyway, this guy's name is Pedro Lopez. He is the monster of the Andes. Pedro Lopez was convicted of killing 100 girls, but some criminologists believe he may have killed as many as 300.
300
Lopez
plus, yeah.
traveled between
Didn't have the
Colombia,
time.
Peru, and Ecuador throughout the 1970s, picking up and murdering his
I've heard
victims.
this,
Lopez claims that at his peak, he was killing up to 3 people a week. But the most disturbing part of the story is the aftermath. In 1988,
Yeah.
Lopez was released from his psychiatric unit for good behavior. His whereabouts are
did.
currently unknown.
Are you
Yes,
kidding
I did
me?
hear about that. They did an
Yeah.
episode on him too.
That's pretty
I think
insane,
that might
right?
have been on
Exactly.
serial killers or one of those other podcasts.
Well, let me
I just
just
wanted to mention that, 'cause
I
that's
will
pretty
just
scary.
say one thing. There's a reason why Brian's behind the camera, not in front of the camera, and his real name might not be Brian. We don't know for
Yeah,
sure.
right.
We don't
He
talk
might
about
be-
that, though.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. That's a different
One other
thing.
guy they showed on that that they don't really.
It did say on here he attended Emerson University and graduated from Emerson, but I don't know.
He likes smoothies
weird
at the
thing.
Netflix lobby.
He does.
Yeah.
But Elmer Wayne Henley, not so much for him alone, but he was associated with Dean Coral, and they showed him
Oh,
the
yeah.
young guy they interviewed very shortly. He ends up killing Dean Coral, but
Oh, yeah.
there was a very weird relationship there.
Yeah.
And two things that are crazy: Dean Coral is known as
Coral,
the Candyman.
I think he's probably the worst serial killer. I was talking to my mom about it.
So, and they don't even barely mention it.
Horrific
He killed so
murders.
many people. He
Horrific
tortured
murders,
kids and put them on
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
cord.
yeah,
and- But the thing about it was he like talked to other guys. Elmer was one of them, but he had another guy would work.
Yeah,
and the
he had two
three
guys.
of them would work together.
Yes.
Wow.
How do they talk?
Yes.
How do you find other mental
don't
people like
understand.
this? Hey,
Because they were
I'm,
younger,
raping and
though,
killing
right?
people. I give it a
That's
try.
what makes it.
But I think I know like with one of the
Facebook
things.
groups at this point, right?
Well, yeah. Well, now it's too easy. Now it's like, hey, go on Reddit. Hey, hashtag subreddit for whatever.
Wasn't there a Craigslist killer?
Yeah, that was actually
let's find
That's
out.
scary
That was
because I work at Craigslist all the
Well,
time. Every
first
time
of
I
all,
post
not
an
only-
ad,
They're looking for you. Joe.
they get these
There wasn't
the
just-
scammers, and I'm like, what if that's a serial killer?
Well, they made a movie about the Craigslist killer, and he wasn't just a Craigslist killer. He was in frickin' Albany. He
Oh,
was in
really?
Albany,
Philip
New
Markoff,
York.
yeah.
Is that
Philip
how many
Markle.
people did he kill?
Was it Albany, Brian?
thought it
Did I
was
make
just
that
one.
up?
It was only like
yeah,
one or two. or-
One second.
well, they couldn't call him a serial killer if he'd killed
Is
only
it
one.
three
I think
more?
you have to-
Oh, is he
Well,
considered
they
a
made a
serial
movie
killer? I don't
about
know.
it. I don't know. I don't know either.
know.
What about
Gotta
the
figure that
asphalt
out.
killers? They come and try to sell you that.
No, we
that's
we
why
don't
I'm
and then
talk.
you get buried in it.
We don't want to
First
talk
of all,
about that.
if anybody's the asphalt killer, I'm the asphalt
Joey's
killer. And I'm
the
killing
asphalt
everybody who's
killer.
trying to shove asphalt out people's faces.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I know, like with one of the big things that a lot of people always like get into now. Like, remember, like in that 1 week, it was like everything was Ted Bundy. That documentary
Yeah.
came out.
Oh,
that
yeah,
he-
it was
Ted
blowing
Bundy
up.
confessions.
That's
tape.
what it was that
And
got
then-
me intrigued, and I started watching the
Zac
videos.
Efron movie
Yeah,
came
Ted
out where he
Bundy,
played that.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy to me is weird because like I know like everybody like what Brian was saying is completely true. All like the serial killers, they all confess to way more and hundreds and hundreds. He was the opposite, and
was
that's what
trying to came off
that's
like a
what freaks me
gentleman.
out because he said he confessed to the 36 that they knew about.
Right.
So he just confessed to the ones they actually found. 36 women. He confessed to it, but the FBI said that they believe he killed 100 or more. They believe
God.
that.
Right.
So that's not even
Well, they
he's
should be able
never
to find
admitted
some
it.
evidence, but
That's terrifying.
The thing is, like when you start listening to more of these podcasts, we're all familiar like Manson and BTK probably.
Jeffrey
and
Dahmer.
Manson never killed anybody.
But
though.
there's so many, right? Well, technically, but he talked his
Yeah.
little cult into it or
Yeah.
whatever. Not to mention that. How about cults? They're basically serial
A little bit of a
killers.
scary
Yeah.
fact: the Craigslist killer was in the New York and New Jersey area.
I
Yes,
was right.
he
Okay,
was.
so
Yes, he was.
I believe it was Albany. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah.
I don't know about all. I know.
Well, how many people did
I
he kill?
probably did business with him.
I don't.
God,
I'm gonna have to find out.
You
the
say
exact-
at least one creepy
He was
thing every
born in Sherrill, New
I
York.
didn't know that I
Sherrill, New
did
York,
business
I'm not
with him.
sure
I
where that
probably
is.
did.
I'm sorry, what was that, Brian?
He was born in Sherrill, New York. Yeah, let's see if I can find like
know
a
what it is.
like a
I don't know
count.
what it
Sherrill,
is
New York.
either.
That's the
Sherrill, New
home
York.
operations of the asphalt bar.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's
Could be.
weird. It's a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Very well
Things
could
are
be.
coming together. I'm wearing the appropriate apparel for weird coincidence.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Gravity Falls.
Gravity Falls. I love that.
Shout out to one of the best animated shows.
So
Holy
good.
shit, amazing.
I wish they would come back with that.
Speaking of freaking shows that I hope they bring back. I'm sorry. Wait, are we done with this?
We
'Cause
like-
Yeah, we're
I-
gonna move on.
I've been dying to
We
talk
hijacked
about.
the show.
Second week in a row, I hijacked the show
How
from the
are
host.
we on time, Brian?
Let's
Because I have
do
like
a-
3 topics. I'm not sure we're
let's
going to
do a
cover them all
pause
in this
now.
show.
We'll do a pause right
All
now.
right. All right. So, like I've been doing on most of my other, I like the celebration days, so
You
I'm
do
going to
like
make that a
that.
tradition, at least when I'm hosting the show. And today
Yeah.
is National Maryland Day. So
All
shout out to
right.
people
Maryland.
in Maryland. Hi, Maryland.
Baltimore.
Yeah.
Wire, bro. The
Yeah.
Wire was shot in Baltimore.
Wire was awesome.
There's all
One of the
kinds
best
of-
shows of all time.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff going on in Baltimore, but we'll get into that another day.
Like the Orioles?
And
The Orioles?
Yeah, like that. And National Peach Pie Day.
Peach pie.
Never had it.
Me neither.
Never will.
Nope.
I think I have had it. I think I
Really?
have. Well, I've had fruit pie that I knew had peaches in it, and it was good.
I might
I
have
think that's
peaches
what
and
we used
apples.
to call your dad.
Yeah, fruit pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Well,
was like a term of endearment. Hey,
Yeah.
fruit pie.
Fruit-
I had that's just one of my many, aliases, nicknames that I have.
The fruit pie killer.
The fruit pie killer.
The fruit pie killer. Oh
I
want to
see if that's actually a thing.
Could
the
be.
fruit pie killer.
my God.
And National Waffle Day. So
Oh,
waffles are good.
Waffles are
Okay.
good, so-
we brought it, but you came back strong there.
yeah, that was
should've had-
good.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's solid.
So,
That's good.
Hey Brian, if you want to just in the meantime Google some other days of the whatever
Yeah.
days it is, in between my dad's pauses for his trying to use his brain.
Yeah.
That's not easy. He needs a break every now
He's
and then.
doing
Yeah.
good. You're
No,
doing
it's
all right.
no, it's great.
So
It's not
far,
easy when you have
I
Alzheimer's.
haven't,
yeah.
haven't had any challenging parts of this episode. Where I
He
had to
got them.
remember
He got
things
all
in
three
it.
of them.
Oh, there you go. Good
three.
shit, man.
Yeah.
All through National Days.
There's a website,
job, buddy.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Yeah. That's where I get them from. So.
Don't put that out there. People are going to be able to preview what Joe's going to talk about.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I shouldn't have said it. Never mind.
Well, you guys should preview it, and then if you wanted to bring like waffles on the show today, you could have brought a plate of
Oh,
waffles.
man.
And
You know when
freaking had
people
a plate
get
of
known for
waffles on
stuff
it.
and then they just send it like to Foo Fighters and they were pegging them with Mentos, we're going to end up to like a waffle podcast.
Yeah, the
waffle cast.
The waffle cast.
This is going to be eating waffles every time we did the show.
Exactly.
So a couple other quick things before we end the show. We're going to do a couple of quick segments, but I just wanted to give Giants are undefeated right now. We should end the season right now and go to the Super Bowl. We're undefeated in the preseason,
In the
which is the first
preseason.
time I think we've done that in like I don't know how many years. I'd have to go back, but we actually and we've not only been undefeated, but I think we've been winning by wide margins.
Well, yesterday it wasn't. No, it was
It's close,
25-23
Oh, all
yesterday.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but still, we're scoring more points in our preseason games than we've scored in all of
That's
last
because
year's.
Manning doesn't
Yeah.
play
Season
most of
games.
it.
Yeah, because he doesn't
Yeah.
play that much anymore.
And Daniel Jones, to me, I'm impressed so far with
Yeah.
his performance.
He's not
So
doing bad.
hopefully-
He's not.
Don't hype train us on Dan. Well, we got to wait
we'll
and see.
We have to
Yeah.
wait and see, of course.
I have some friends that are like all in on Daniel Jones.
Really?
And like, here's the thing: I don't want to be.
God
I
bless
don't.
him.
I don't want to be like
don't have a
against
choice.
it. But it's like at the same time, I don't want to get my hopes up.
Right,
Like, I
well,
have
you're
friends
Giants
that are
fans.
like,
You know how it is.
they're going, it's the Daniel Jones era, man. This is the Daniel Jones doing his thing, and I'm like, Daniel Jones is. We don't know. We don't know anything. yet.
Preseason
So
is
I have-
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have my finger hovered
not
above the
irrelevant.
buy button on Amazon for the Daniel Jones jersey. I'm just waiting for
Well,
the
you
right
give me
moment
your
to do it.
Saquon. I'll take that Saquon jersey.
No, you
Oh,
won't.
yes, we will.
Yeah.
Make sure you order from China.org or whatever
Yeah,
you're
but-
doing.
I'll get it hopefully before the season's
By the
over.
way, freaking speaking of the days, I don't mean to completely hijack again. I'm just gonna keep
No, that's
hijacking.
fine.
That's my thing. I'm gonna
How
be the
dare you.
hijacker.
It's not my show. I'm just hosting. You guys can talk about whatever you want
I'm
to
gonna
talk
be
about.
the official hijacker of
Listen, the other day when you called,
podcast.
Joey called me or I called him, whatever, we were talking about the show, and then Joey's like, "Do you hear about Sony and Spiderman?" I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" Yeah, I heard about it, and we're talking about two completely different things because they happened on like the same day.
Yeah,
I
on the
think.
same
So
day.
Tell us what happened?
Well,
Rob's over here talking about like, yeah, I heard Sony like bought like a candy bar from Disney, and they're like, oh, I didn't want almonds in it, and they were like, oh, I'm sorry, we had almonds in it.
And then
I can't ever get what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
big lawsuit broke out because
There was in the gaming world, there was big Disney Sony news, which I think probably a lot of Marvel fans don't know, is that the Spider-Man video game, which is just for PS4, which is a phenomenally well-reviewed game. I've been dying to play it. I haven't played it yet.
I haven't.
Yeah. Oh my God, Rob, I would love that.
Is it
I'm dying to play
PS4
it.
exclusive?
Yeah, it's
then I can't buy it.
Yeah, PS4 exclusive, unfortunately. But yeah,
is
so
Microsoft out here? Is that
yes,
what's happening?
yeah.
Xbox.
It's crazy, man. But yeah. So I guess Insomniac Studios, is that what it is? Insomniac Studios produces that, develops that game. They were just bought out by Sony. So now a lot of people are panicking that no, I hope it's not going to ruin the game, because I know that they were planning on making sequels to it. So that's a big thing. But of course, I wanted to make a national day for, I believe it was Thursday, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Wednesday national. Wednesday National Screw Sony Day, if we could. Because I'm telling you, man, and like, so the big news was that Spider-Man has officially been pulled from the Disney lineup of MCU superheroes. Disney and Sony had a partnership deal. So in 2015, Spider-Man magically appeared in Captain America: Civil War, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! How did that work out?" Well, it's because Disney basically like went groveling on their knees to Sony and said, "We'll just take 10%. You guys keep 90%. We just want Spider-Man. It's all we want is the guy in a red suit in our movie, right?" So they did that, and that was in 2015. Obviously, since then he's been in Civil War. He had his own 2 movies. He's been in Infinity War and Endgame. So all these different things.
Big role.
Yeah, and he was a sizable role, made them a lot of money. So now I guess the contract was up for the amount of film. So Disney reapproached Sony. He's like, listen, we want to do a new deal. And the rumor was that they had gone ahead and they had said we want to do 50-50. That was the original rumor. So it turns out that rumor was not true. So even that, I got wrong about that. I mean, everyone did. The original offer was for, I believe, 30%. And Sony was like not having it. And I guess the idea was that they didn't feel that Disney had a right to offer a renegotiation and want more money. So rather than offer a counteroffer, Sony said, no, screw you. We're taking Spider-Man back. And they just straight up ripped Spider-Man out of Disney's hands, and Disney's like, well, what the hell, man? I thought we had a deal. And he's like, yeah. So
you want to cover more of that on your own on your hosting, or you want?
I mean, it's just like, for me, it's like I don't even know what there is to cover. I just like,
there's so much money though. They'll have to come to something.
That's just a power move at that point.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, why do you need? Sony's not like known for their superheroes, are they? No.
Well, they made Spider-Man 1 and 2, but besides that, they also made Spider-Man 3, which kind of ruined superhero movies for a good.
For a while.
Beast. I'm sure and it's going to even get crazier. Yeah, they'll work it out because people will just go crazy.
They're both going to lose bad if they don't work.
Okay, so here's so this is the article. So I apologize. So then the original deal, the original reports are that Disney made a controversial offer to Sony to keep it going, to split production costs and profits 50-50. So the idea was they wanted to make the Spider-Man solo films more profitable for themselves. So now, and Sony was like, screw you. Now, the one thing I will say is this. A friend of mine sent me an article yesterday that was from Deadline that did say that Disney has reapproached Sony, and they said that they will amend that to 25%, and they will allow Sony to keep all of the merchandising profits. So it is likely that Sony will accept that. If Sony doesn't accept that, I was telling you last night.
Sure, something will happen.
Right.
Yeah. Can you imagine if they say no to a second time?
Yeah, but you're
getting that's
so when
like
you
what,
told me
70%, 80%.
Yeah.
Like, how is that not enough?
Exactly.
It's just penis measuring.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
When you said it though, and you were like all like upset about it, I'm like, Joe, it's not that big a deal. They'll probably make a Spider-Man 2 for Sony PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. All I knew was that Insomniac was bought. I'm like, it's not gonna ruin my day. He's like, whoa,
dude, I was so upset. A friend of mine tweeted at Sony, and he was so mad. He was like, dude, you guys are the worst. You're terrible. It was so.
They probably didn't even read it.
Yeah,
no, absolutely,
probably not.
Oh man.
So, all right. So let's go into our normal segment. We're going to do the Google.
Oh, we actually haven't done that in a while.
We haven't done it in a couple of episodes.
You haven't done it. It's been like 3 episodes, I think, something like that.
So right,
I've actually yet
it
to
is
see
kind of
this segment.
interesting what
Yeah,
my
Brian
feed
hasn't even
is.
seen this
So,
yet.
you want me to start with my feed?
So you want to explain the segment real quick for
Yeah, all right.
those
So
of
the
us
segment is we've had it in most of our shows. I think maybe the past 2 episodes we didn't have it, but we always talked about how Google knows what you're doing all the time. Like it follows what you're looking up, it follows what your trending, what your trending thing is basically. It throws those things on your Google feed, so it gives you, whatever they think you've been interested in, they put it in your top 3 feeds. So it was interesting that we wanted to read off what our feeds are, and so we're going to go and do that again. So mine, of course, it's always the same for the first one because I'm a big cruise guy. I'm always looking at cruises.
You're still on
and it's
cruises?
still on cruises. But the funny thing is, I really haven't looked at cruises.
Yeah,
that much,
I was gonna
but
say.
It still knows, I guess, over
He's
the
still
course.
trying to board the Love Boat.
Yeah, and I guess over the past year with going on the last cruise, I just did so many things with Royal Caribbean, constantly searching Royal Caribbean and doing that. Then I still have my first feed is about Royal Caribbean's new sale, including free Wi-Fi and all-inclusive drinks packages, which they had anyway. I already know. But the interesting thing is my second feed, which is interesting because we talked about it in the podcast today. Cost of being shot. Tom Rivers, survivor, says each new mass shooting rips a scab off. So it's talking about a guy who was in a mass shooting.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting that we talked about that. Maybe because I was searching things for information for today's podcast, it threw that in my feed. So it just goes to show you how Google, it's going to throw something there for you because you've been doing that the past few days or whatever. Yeah. Not that interesting, but kind of interesting because it was really, we were talking about mass shootings and stuff. So
I don't know what happened. I just lost my feed for some reason.
Shout out to Panama.
while he's looking, what do you got on your feed? I bet you it's a Nintendo Switch one.
It's probably in there somewhere. I'm wondering if Joey and I's are similar. I know, like, sometimes we look at similar games and
we
movies
do.
and stuff. But all right, so today I have Logan Paul mocked after trying to help the Amazon rainforest.
Oh, really?
Which that's pretty interesting.
Oh, well, yeah.
It wasn't that
the Amazon
long ago.
rainforest is sad, but the Logan Paul's also sad. Just a sad human being.
Isn't
he going broke or something?
Is he really going broke?
I saw I saw an article on it, but I don't know how.
I don't know, but he's such an insensitive asshole. To act like he cares about anything, it's hard to swallow. Especially after what was only a year and a half ago when he went to that Japanese forest.
The freaking suicide forest. It was the whole trip. He was just acting like a jerk. You can see the footage. He's completely running through the streets of Japan, disrespecting everybody's culture and the people. And
Right.
I wish somebody would have come out. I wish it was like one of those redemption videos. He's like running around acting like an asshole, and all of a sudden, some Asian guy roundhouse kicks him in the mouth and just knocks his ass out.
Bruce Lee comes back from the grave.
Before you go to your next one, let me just quick one. My fourth feed was about Spider-Man. Sony thinks it can make billion-dollar Spider-Man movies without Marvel. It can't. I just want to throw that because he was talking about it. So.
And it will just get weak and fall off again. Yeah. I think they got all pumped up thinking Spider-Man was amazing because they made him amazing with the MCU.
Yeah, right.
You know, at least from my point of view, before that, it wasn't like, oh my God, I have to see this Spider-Man movie.
Right.
It was like, holy crap, they made another Spider-Man movie? I guess I'll watch it. That's what it was like. I didn't even know when they rebooted it a couple. What was that with Garfield?
Andrew Garfield. They did.
I don't remember it being advertised. Like,
weren't those like complete
Spider-Man?
trash though? Like it just
they weren't that good.
They were
I didn't
right,
like them. They were
okay.
No.
All right. So anyway, my second is Google Maps and Android Auto add some helpful new buttons. So I think we talked about Android Auto not that long ago.
Yeah.
But if you don't know, it's basically makes your phone, if you have an Android phone, easier to view in your car. It becomes the operating system for your head unit.
Yeah.
So they finally refreshed it. It's been a lot of years. But don't get your panties in a bunch, I guess, if you're an iOS user, because they're about to refresh too.
Oh, really?
I heard they're going to make a big update.
The CarPlay, Apple Air. What is it? CarPlay? CarPlay, right? CarPlay.
And it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
I just don't like Siri that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right.
And last is it's rumor time. Kit Harington is reportedly heading to the MCU.
There we go. That was my third one. So me and Rob do have the same thing.
All right.
Yeah, that's my
so
third
you don't
one
have to
as
see
well.
a third one. So
he's going to be playing a superhero.
So it says Kit Harington is set to join the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, the one thing I will say is they're not sure if he's going to be, because like Disney Plus has their new platform, their new streaming platform starting, so that they're not sure if it's going to be an MCU movie or a Disney Plus Marvel TV show. So he might be doing one or the other. So that's an interesting.
So what were your other two feeds?
So my number one is actually, this is really weird. Me and Rob are kind of switching. I have a oh no, I'm sorry. That was not the right one. I apologize. It's something with the Nintendo Switch, but it's an advertisement. It's not.
All right.
It's not one of my news.
I knew the Nintendo Switch was going to get mentioned in the show at some point.
It's in my next feed.
Yeah.
It was the next one down. on it.
That's pretty funny. My number one was that the man that was struck by Conor McGregor calls the former champion a bit of a bully. So I don't know if you guys saw what happened. It was all over the news. Conor McGregor was at a bar in Ireland, and this is back in April.
Ago.
Yeah, this is back in April, but the footage came out finally.
Oh.
And he was giving out, he has a whiskey company that he owns. I forget what it's called, but he was passing out shots of his whiskey for free, and the one guy at the bar didn't want it. So he kept putting the glass down. The guy took it, and he just kind of pushed it away. He didn't want it. So the Conor McGregor walks back over, slams the thing down, so the cup down, a new one, and pours him a new one. He pushes it away. Then Conor McGregor kind of walks off camera. You can't really see, and then he walks back to the guy, and he's yelling at him, and then he throws a punch, and he punches the guy.
Really?
The guy turns out it was like 56 years old.
Wow.
He was like a chubby white guy, just hanging out at the bar, just didn't want a shot of his whiskey.
That could be me if I was a little older. Why are you putting that out there?
I know, right?
Make me sound all weak.
But you would have drank.
so-
You would have drank the whiskey, though.
Obviously.
But he
Yeah.
freaking
For free?
punched the guy.
Yeah.
He punched this guy.
So
over
obviously
something so
completely
stupid.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Drink
Yeah.
my whiskey.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially in
Right,
Ireland.
that's
In
right.
Ireland, it's like, wait,
Yeah.
you're Irish, you're not drinking whiskey? I guess
Yeah,
I understand.
he's pretty level-headed. Brian nailed it.
Yeah.
Guy should have known better.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a fair point.
Duh.
And then my fifth one was these top 5 players, sleepers for your fantasy football draft.
There you go.
So, which is, by the way, spoiler alert, might be getting a little bit of that next
get the
episode.
fresh-
We're going to be
the
getting
hot takes.
the first ever fantasy football, pretty much centered, and that's just because we have our fantasy football draft around the corner, man.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
Coming
right there.
up, man.
We're still looking
It's
for one
coming
more
up.
person to join. We have an open spot.
We
in
do
our
have an
league.
open
We're
spot in our league. We're trying to get Brian in. We're trying to finagle
but
whoever
if you're
we can.
interested in want to be in my fantasy league, it's
Yeah.
$100 for the season
There you
with
go.
great prizes at the end, and it'd be fun. So anyway, for next week's show, we're going to be covering a little bit more about the fantasy and football,
Yeah.
and maybe talk about that a little bit. We're going to have a segment on love and marriage.
Love and marriage.
And we're going to talk about my 35
Dating.
years of marriage, successful marriage with my wife, and Rob's 10. He's just had a 10-year anniversary
And
with
my
his
15.
wife.
Hey, thanks, Steph.
And Brian's 15th anniversary of his marriage that nobody knew about.
That
We
no
just
one
found
knew.
that out.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Brian. Your
Congratulations,
15th. That's
Brian, yeah.
awesome. And
Of which yielded him 17 Bangladeshian children.
Yeah,
Yes.
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
and, yeah, so
That's not just. I just like adopting. That's just me.
And we'll-
I raise them on my own.
yeah, and we'll
It's
give,
sort
you,
of like collecting Pokemon. I just like go out there.
Gotta
and I
get
just,
'em
like,
all.
Like that. Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
we'll give you some insight onto how to have a successful marriage, I guess, and how to have semi-successful children. I mean,
Yeah, right.
basically, you
Or at least how to
you
catch
can
him.
talk. Taught him how to talk and walk, and he does a pretty good job doing that. So
And like read and stuff.
Yeah, and read a little bit.
time.
Yeah,
A little bit, barely.
read. So so that's our show, folks. So don't forget, if you watch our show on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button so you can keep up to date with our shows. You can also reach us on our website at looselyrelatedpodcast.com. You could also shoot us a note, LR Podcast.
You can tweet us,
Add us, whatever, and you can go to my Facebook page at Loosely Related Podcast, and we also are on Spotify,
We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and now iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. So there's plenty of places to see us.
Yeah.
So you have no excuse but to watch the show, and
Facts.
don't forget to leave the opinions on our topics today because we're very interested in hearing from you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for joining our show, and have a great day and week. Until next week.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.